up there.
Yep. Gracie this girl graduated 2 years ago, played on the volleyball team.
You don't like your tie, Rick?
Sydney Evans.
Okay.
And
tie?
they're going back and
I
forth.
had it on for my picture, but I took it off. It's still like warm.
Starting to.
No, I like it.
This new thing with the kids, they talk
It's too hot.
Whatever it is.
before they go out on dates.
I
And,
only
you know, they want to
remember
start seeing each other. Apparently, she wants to talk to Ben Urand. And Gracie goes, Ben Urand?
Yeah.
Is that the mayor's son? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, no, my dad knows the
know
mayor.
that.
I can put a good word in for you. I'm like, yeah, hey, Dave,
Yeah.
your son.
Yeah, hey, Dave.
Oh,
I think he went to on a football scout.
Oh.
Sean
Then for Crown
can't
Point.
keep his ward straight.
Then football player.
Yeah, I mean, Dave's not a small guy.
No, huh?
really? Did it again?
Right,
Oh, yeah, Britney Spears.
What do we got? I know it is. I know it is. Yep, I know it is. Yep, I don't see it.
He mentioned Britney Spears. I said she finally gets her free,
Yeah,
but then she posed.
it was just top. It wasn't.
Oh, you were looking.
I got a grade 8 by 10 of it.
Oh, boy, what a meeting. We should go far.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What's this?
People only knew. Yeah, that's a lot of people. Way to go, Sean.
Sean, get your words.
I didn't do it. Joe did it.
Oh, Joe did it.
I wasn't
Blame
at the last BZA. I said my piece.
Maybe we should move the agendas so that we,
It's up to
Hold
you.
on, Rich.
that way people aren't standing for.
Hot night out there.
Yeah, it is. Might as well let him go, Rick.
So,
629.
Petitions, communications. You want to move it up?
yeah, I need a
Under
motion.
that?
I need a motion to move it. What resolutions is it?
It's a BZA action.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, well, let's do that.
Yeah.
After the call. We'll amend the agenda.
Sean.
You gonna move it up before the committee reports?
I don't know. I
I'm
haven't.
gonna move it up to the very start
Oh,
of the
very
meeting.
beginning.
I would guess they have.
That way
Yeah.
we could get through it and, you know. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Merrillville Town Council meeting for today, Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at 6:30 PM. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Remain standing for our invocation.
Let's pray. Oh God, our Father, we come to you with gratitude in our hearts tonight. We thank you, God, for this community, for those who lead, for those who discern, for the families that have been raised here, for those who serve and protect. And Father, as we meet again this evening, we just seek your wisdom, your guidance, your knowledge, your directions to strengthen the families, to strengthen the lives of all who live here. Thank you, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Madam Clerk Treasurer, would you please take the roll?
Certainly. Councilman Span?
Present.
Councilman Hardaway?
Here.
Councilman Minchuk? Here. Councilwoman Yuzlak?
Here.
Councilman Pettit?
Here.
Councilman White?
Here.
Councilman Bella?
Here.
All present.
All present. Thank you. Tonight, I'm going to adjust the agenda a little bit and move down to Board of Zoning Appeal actions. I see a lot of people here tonight. I think they're here for the Northwest Indiana Islamic Center petition. So if you don't mind, we're going to change the agenda and do that petitioner first. So Ms. Shine, would you take us through that?
Yes. Special exception approval, case number Z 23E70621, Northwest Indiana Islamic Center Incorporated, petitioner owner, the North American Islamic Trust Incorporated, purpose to allow 2 modular classrooms for 2 years located at 9803 Colorado Street in the A1 Agriculture Zoning District. Petitioner is requesting special exception approval from Section 21-136 to allow a temporary modular classrooms at Indiana Horizon Academy. Indiana Horizon Academy is a full-time nonprofit community school that was established by Northwest Indiana Islamic Center in 2013 to enroll 16 students and 7 staff members. The IHA operates Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. IHA has been serving the community and building a strong educational foundation since its inception. Therefore, the school has a waiting list and has reached its full building capacity. The enrollment for 2021-2022 is 95 students and 20 staff members. Section 21-136 states that a school is a permitted use in the agriculture zoning district. Petitioner is requesting that special exception approval to be able to use 2 modular classrooms for the temporary classrooms for 2 years. The classrooms are 68 feet long, including hitch, 64 feet box size, 24 feet wide, with 8-inch ceilings. Interior and finishes include vinyl covered gyp walls, vinyl tile floors, windows, doors, heating, and cooling. Taking into consideration the parking on the west and east side of the property, there will be 165 existing parking spaces. There will be a loss of 9 parking spaces due to the new modular classrooms. Therefore, no seats will be, the seats in the portion of the mosque where the religious service occur 1 hour on each month. The number of participants for the prayer sections will be 150 to 175, depending on the weather condition. The temporary classrooms will not be noisy nor emit noxious pollutants. Temporary classrooms will not. The temporary classrooms will not be noisy nor emit pollutants. There is a tenant who operates a separate school on the premises. However, the 2 modular classrooms will not interfere with the use or operation of that school. The modulars have a self-contained septic system which are cleaned on a regular schedule. The proposed modular classroom will conform to the town's ordinance. The fire inspector has been in contact with the state fire inspector in order to make sure that the classrooms are state-approved and safe. Petitioner was deferred on June 23, 2021, so that the members of the Board of Zoning Appeals would have time to review the written remonstration that was issued during the meeting. For this petitioner only, at this location only, and for this use only. The vote on that was taken on July 28th was 3 approved and 1 abstention.
Is the petitioner here, Ms. Shine?
Yes.
Could you approach,
Attorney
please? Name and address for the record.
Sure. Good evening, Attorney Adam Swarden, Swarden Law, PC, here on behalf of the petitioner. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Town Council. Here, obviously, on behalf of Sheila's very thorough report, after my client received a development standards variance to permit the use of the 2 temporary classrooms for the BZA as step 1, and then the second criteria that needed to be met was coming before you for the special exception for the use to apply for those 2 mobile classrooms that were approved on site. We went through a lot of information at both of those meetings related to the concerns for parking, child safety, how children would be traversing from these mobile classroom locations on the far east and south side of the rear parking lot, which is the largest parking lot on the site. My clients are working and willing to discuss this with members of the town to come up with a program and create some separation along the back edge of that parking area, as it's approximately 50 steps from the location of the 2 mobile classrooms to the primary building where the main classrooms are held. As far as the concerns over well and septic, I think those were addressed based off of the way that these units are designed. There's nothing that's going to be directly connected to the existing system at the site. And then ultimately, the fact is that the town has made it clear that they do not want this use to be something that would become permanent. So we had the condition placed on there that it would only be for this 2-year term and that there would not be any ability for an extension if town council were to grant tonight the favorable recommendation from the BZA. We even went a step further at that meeting and stated that if something were to develop where long-term they are able to do a build-out or negotiate and do something that's financially feasible with the other operator of the other school at the site, and that they would no longer have a need for those classrooms, that we would even consider that as an additional condition. So that's what's before you tonight. Obviously, there's a lot of support here. You have a very strong institution in this community. I think there's been some members of the town council quoted in the paper that they like this institution, they like what it's doing for the community, the programs that it offers, especially to those that are disadvantaged and financially looking for this opportunity to receive this religious education. And we even had testimony before the BZA of folks driving 45 minutes plus to bring their kids here all the way over from Porter County because of the quality of the education being received. So we look forward to having a decision tonight. A lot is riding on this to have action tonight. They've received a state grant program, a sizable amount of money that needs to be spent before the 3rd week of this month for these classrooms, for that use. And if they don't get this tonight, they are going to lose that funding. So we implore you tonight to please consider the support that this has garnered. And I don't think that there's been any further remonstrance against this since the last meeting, or at least not that I've become aware of. But I'm happy to answer any additional questions, and I don't wish to be redundant for what's in the record from the 60-plus pages, I think times 4, that have been submitted on this project. Thank you.
Mr. Pettit?
To the council members, there's a lot going on out here. And since we're going to dive into this, Mr. Bella, we're going to dive into this deep. And a lot of the folks out there know me, recognize me. Their attorney is new. This was not the attorney that I stood in front of at the June BZA. This gentleman is new to the July BZA. We took staff out there, Sheila and I, Mr. Svetnoff, Mr. Lake, Mr. King, Chief Yerga was out there with us. We have a problem, ladies and gentlemen. I've been very straightforward with each and every one of you, have I not? Have I not? Yes, you have, Mr. Pettit. Okay, thank you. The problem that we have, council members, is we have an empty building on the property, Avencia, that is not being used. And quite frankly, there's a financial dispute between 2 parties, and because they can't reach that 2-party arrangement on leasing the empty building, they're asking the town council to set a dangerous precedent on allowing 2 portable classrooms to be on the parking lot. Now, I may or may not make the motion, ladies and gentlemen, and I may or may not go along with it, and I met with you guys and I told you this was the idea, but I can guarantee you, do not come back here on August 11th of 2023 and ask for this special exception to be extended. Am I clear? Am I clear, ladies and gentlemen?
So is there an issue why the existing building can't be used for classrooms?
Yes, I mean,
A different owner.
parties have been in negotiations, and they were hoping to reach a resolution by the time this went to the BZA at the last meeting. They could not reach agreement. It is over finances, and if that opportunity would have been financially feasible, they would have moved forward. And
I think they told us at the last BZA meeting, though, it was none of the town's business. I remember that distinctly. So.
right, as far as the details, I can't get into that because it's a private matter. And obviously, what's before you is the use exception. And I did make a bit of a record before that, you know, I've reviewed section 2116 of the town code for temporary building uses. I'm actually surprised that we're even here, that we have to ask for this, because there's this provision in here that says we don't have to come in and ask for mobile classrooms as a temporary use for a special exception. But they were told otherwise. That was before my involvement. And we're here tonight because we were asked to do that and go through this process with you, and that's what we're doing.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. President.
Mr. White?
With the modular build, excuse me, with the modular buildings you're talking, how large are they? Do you have any?
I don't think I have the dimensions.
60 by something, Leonard.
They
the
are
diagram.
68 by,
64 feet box size and 24 feet wide. So there's 64 feet one way and 24 feet the other way.
but they'll be stacked, I believe, right, Sheila? So it's really 64 and 48, because they'll be side by
Side
side,
by
correct?
side, yes.
Yes.
So it's two of them, 64 by
Yeah.
24.
In each of those classrooms, they actually have 4 means of ingress and egress, where state only requires 2, so they're actually overly designed for the safe moving of kids in and out of the units.
And in terms of, you saying that you were going to be using a septic system for,
No, that's all integrated in these mobile units. They are not being connected to the existing well and septic. I know that was a large concern, because originally, before they went down this path, after meeting with the town there on site, was they were looking at expanding existing building. And that's where the limitations of well and septic were, at least at that time. There are other options now, I think, because of what's happened as of July 1st with the IDEM being stripped of some of its wetland authority, as to whether some of that property to the north eventually could be looked at for expansion for future development. But they went down this path, they have the grant funds, they have the ability to do this temporarily. This will give them then the time to investigate now that that new law is in place, and they've already started that discussion with their soils engineer they were working with before they went down this path of looking at the mobile classrooms as a temporary solution.
sure. And I'm asking pretty close to like Councilman Pettit is talking about. So this is like in 2023? You don't want them to come back?
This would be for good for 2 years from tonight. Yeah, so it'd be,
And then after that, nothing?
that's going to be part of my motion. I guess the other comment, sir, is, our stormwater director is writing back at you. And one of the problems you folks realize, I hope, or at least I realize talking to Matt, is that existing septic system for the existing building and everything that you folks do out there is not working. There's also a question, Mr. President and council members, that somehow previously, these buildings were built and they're not properly sprinkled. And so that becomes a concern for me in talking with Chief Yurgis. So again, as we had that discussion in the parking lot with some of the gentlemen who hosted us, we talked about the expansion and the investment that you're going to make, and looking at the property to the west side of Colorado and all that acreage that's undeveloped, and the ability to extend the sewer and water from the 9300 block. There's a lift station that was installed as a part of the Polycon development, and Modern Forge tapped into it, and that line could be extended to make this, quite frankly, a safer environment. You folks have a lot of people that come in there to worship on Fridays, overcrowding of the parking lot, overcrowding of the building, overstressing the septic. And again, we continue to allow that. And part of my motion tonight is going to be, this is the last thing that the Islamic Center, petition-wise, I'm going to support as the councilman. I don't want to hear about expansion. I don't want to hear about going to the north. With all due respect, sir, the gentleman that you're in a dispute with over Avencia owns the property to the north in the gray house. I've had complaints from the neighbors about the activity at the gray house. So good luck with that, I guess. But something, ladies and gentlemen, something has got to be done. And I talked to some of the elders, some of the board members about this out in the field, did we not? We discussed the potential development on the west side, expanding, realizing that you're growing, and that's great. But we can't stuff a size 7 foot into a size 5 shoe. It's not, it can't happen, folks. It just can't happen. It's not safe for your worshipers, your members, the kids. It's just not right. So, Mr. President, at this time, so we don't, unless people have remonstration, I'm going to make a motion. And again, this is begrudgingly, but I'm going to do it because I know you've got grant money on the table and for the kids. I'm going to make a motion to approve Z 18E5-0521 with the caveat that the Northwest Indiana Islamic Center for the next 2 years will not allow a petition for any advancement unless it's approved by stormwater onto the sewer, and that these classrooms will be removed August 8th of 2023.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Hardaway for approval of this petitioner Z18E5-0521 with the caveat of no other petitions coming to the town within this 2-year period and with an expiration date of 8/8/23. Is that correct, Mr. Pettit?
Yes,
Does that satisfy the needs of the petitioner?
it does, Mr. President.
Okay. Can I just see a show of hands? Who is here in support of this project tonight? Who is here in opposition of this project? Okay. Any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none. Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Span?
Yes.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yes.
Mr. Minchuk?
Yes.
Ms. Uzelak?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Bella?
Yes.
7 in favor.
7 ayes, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. In just 1 sec, I will move back up to the top of the agenda with petitions and communications.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Did someone say something? What,
Mr. Hardaway said motion to
what
approve.
are we approving?
I thought you said, go ahead.
No, we're,
I was thinking consent agenda.
oh, we're not there yet, Rich. Thank you, though.
Okay.
I retract my second.
Councilman Minchuk.
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
It's okay.
If you don't mind, I know we're kind of juggling the agenda a little bit. Would you mind if we went to public safety for right now? We have some special speakers that have to leave here in a little bit. And if you don't mind
Okay.
going to that, that'd be
Sure.
great.
Okay, we're going to jump down to public safety. Councilman Minchuk.
Chief, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Yes, good evening. I know it was turned over to me the 13th of July to address our animal control issue. And we had posted it online for hiring a part-time person due to the absence of our full-time person, Barb, and it had to be extended. And I have good news. We finally found someone. He's completing his application. He's in the audience at this time. Kelly, can you come forward, please? His name is Kelly Jerna. He's employed with Lake Superior Ambulance Service. He's familiar with the town, so it shouldn't be hard for him to move around and locate when dispatched. And he's also familiarizing himself with equipment to be used to fulfill that service. I also asked if she can show up, and I appreciate she has. I have Darlene Bryanstein. She's the Sergeant Darlene Bryanstein from the Gary Police Department. She's the Director of Animal Control for the City of Gary. And we appreciate, in our time of need, she was willing to step up and still is stepping up to assist us in this particular manner. Darlene, can you come up as well? So with that being said, I know it was some questions, but hopefully these two right here will address the issues that we've been experiencing, and we can continue to move over, and we're looking forward to a full recovery for Barb. Any questions for Ms. Bryanstein? Anyone with animal control?
No, but thank you for offering to train, and we appreciate that, Sergeant.
No problem, sir.
Thank you very much.
I do have one question, Mr. President.
Right.
And I know that probably, and I appreciate the Public Safety Committee and Chief Catino doing a good job of trying to nail this thing down. I think it's something that's been bothering those individuals that's showing up at the meetings. So I know this is not a long-term situation, but I just want to let you know I appreciate it from any aspect. And hopefully, I don't know our timeline for it, Mr. Bella, but 90 days, are we looking at 90 days, 6 months, or until we get our own house in order on
Yeah,
this?
we get our own, and we're probably talking about 2 full-time positions.
Okay. Again, thank you, Ms. Breinstein, you said?
Breitenstein.
Breinstein, okay. Thank you very much, and I guess I can welcome the new guy here. We got a lot to do, and I'm sure that you'll be getting a lot of our phone calls. Thank you.
I'm up to it.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Anything else, Mr. Minchuk?
Thank you, Chief. I'll wait till we come back to agenda. We can go back to normal, sir.
Oh, no,
Thank you.
You can finish now if you'd like.
Oh, well, as long as we're under public safety, that is not the end of our animal control issues. Chief did really good work finding these two people to help us with our problems. We do have some current plans going on as we speak, but nothing I'm going to release just yet. But we are working on the problems. It's something we want to take care of here really quick. So thank you. That's all I have for public safety.
Thank you.
I got one thing, Mr. President, on the public safety.
Mr. Hardaway.
The infamous street light at 53rd and Broadway. Mr. King, you did okay. I don't want to take anything from you, but I contacted Senator Milton yesterday, and he contacted his administrative assistant, and she contacted somebody from NDOT, and NDOT they apologized for the length of time that it's taken, but they assured me that things will start moving on that here this week. So I just think that, unfortunately, we should have went to Senator Milton probably in the first place, as opposed to trying to go through proper channels. After a couple of weeks, we should have did something different. But I appreciate everything that you did, and I look forward to seeing that light pole removed from in front of CVS and the flashing lights removed from overhead.
So, Mr. Hardaway, I think you mentioned in your report earlier that the job was just bigger than what NDOT even thought it was.
That's what they said.
So they need to contract it out,
That's
right?
what Mr. King's,
Yeah.
but the guy that emailed me today, he didn't say that the job was too big.
Okay,
He said he'll take care of it.
good,
Which is what I wanted to hear.
very
Thank you,
good.
Mr. President.
Absolutely.
Mr. President,
Mr. White.
additionally, under the public safety, I did also get the email from Steve King today. I was really glad to hear that they're starting to move on putting a left turn signal on 57th. I don't know what's the time frame for that, but just want to thank Steve for staying on top of it. That's it, nothing else.
Okay. Moving back up to petitions, communications, acknowledgements, and remonstrations, we do have the Butler Fairman Seifert engineering agreement. Mr. Reardon or Ms. Shine, would you like to tell us about this?
I'll address it. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
President. As the council knows, for some time, we have been pursuing options to modernize our permit tracking efforts here. And we looked at multiple alternatives, and what we have before us is a proposal that will allow us to attack those core issues with the permitting and the tracking. To do justice to this, I'm going to ask, with the council's permission, Matt to take the mic. Matt spearhead this for us, and certainly Jake is here for us. Always important, how is this going to be paid for? This is going to be paid for with the council's approval through everyone's budget, including stormwater. Almost every department, police, fire, planning, building, administration, perhaps streets, as well as stormwater are involved here. So that's the approach. I think it's consistent with what we talked about before. Matt?
Yeah, for the past several months, I've been tasked with looking for a fully integrated system to kind of bring together all departments through their licensing, permitting, inspections, even purchasing, in order to manage it properly and to maximize what we're doing and share information. And a lot of communities are doing this with other software packages. I looked at some other companies, and the prices were pretty steep. I had talked with Butler Fairman, and they had developed a system, and they had presented it to us, and I'll let Jake expand on that a bit and talk about the bells and whistles and the benefits of their system. But we were impressed with what they had presented to us. The cost is astronomically low compared to the rest of them, and I thought this was a great opportunity for us to transition into something that is going to be more in keeping with the times now, and being able to access information remotely and stuff. You know, when COVID hit, we had a lot of remote workstations and things like that, and also to capture as much as we can through the inspections and all that. A lot of times when you don't have a robust system to collect and track all that information, you'll lose a lot of it. You don't pick up all the inspections and all the fees and who's due and who's in violation and things like that. So with that, I'll let Jake come up and give a short synopsis of their software package, and they're a local firm. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Good evening, everyone. That was a good summary provided by Mr. Lake. Just to elaborate a little bit on that, essentially what this is a semi-customizable software program that will be integrated into the town of Merrillville's current processes. So where we're a little bit different is that we adapt to your current systems versus telling you how to do things that some of those other packages require. This is a little bit a la carte, if you will, in that it's expandable. It's essentially asset management, and this is at the very front end of it, where we begin with planning and building permitting process in order to track things that begin at the planning stages and then go through building permitting through a workflow process. And what that really means is that there'll be assignments made to individuals within the town and responsibilities within those assignments for tasks to get completed, in which the, let's say, main user would be able to monitor and track throughout the course of that procedure in order to make sure that all the things are complete before an occupancy permit is provided, for instance. This also allows for business licensing to become automated for renewals. These can be printed and then sent out. What we do is collect as much information as we can, bring that into the GIS database, which we already have some involvement in here in town. So that information is kept and stored on a cloud, so that is stored safely and securely and available for the future. What will be the result of this is if you had a phone or an iPad and were out and about in town, you could pull up this application and click on an individual permit and learn what the permit is for, whether it's expiring, all kinds of things. It can be used for code enforcement, contractor registration, rental tracking if desired, as well as the general closeout for projects of infrastructure type projects or capital improvement projects for the town. So our services will provide all of those items as outlined in Appendix A of the agreement, if you would want to go through those in detail, as well as the training and support to keep staff, get the staff up to date and up to speed on the software, and then carry them through the next 3 years, at which point in time, honestly, quite frankly, after the first 6 months or so, they'll probably be doing pretty much everything on their own, but we're certainly just around the corner for any support that might be needed.
Any questions or comments? Jake? Kelly, does this fit into what you talked about in the past too? The clerk's office?
I'm not really sure. I haven't had a conversation with them yet to see. I wasn't really looped in to see whether or not it's going, I would assume that it would, that we should be able to do it, you know, integrate what we did with the new credit card, you know, being able to pay with credit cards and all that. So, I mean, I'm sure that we'll have a conversation, we'll be able to figure it out, but, I mean.
Yeah, online payments and that sort of thing, we can coordinate that with your office in order to institute that.
Okay.
So Matt, did we not vet this with the clerk's office? Make sure everything we integrate properly?
We were going to start with planning and building and work it up from there.
Okay.
And code enforcement as well, and the fire department, because they're out and about doing all the inspections. So we were going to feel it out from there, and then we move in everybody else as we grow it.
Yeah, it's the business license portion of it that, I would want to make sure the licensing.
Yeah, and everything we saw, it can do everything we want. And like Jake said, the customizable part is really desirable. So if you really want to get some different information, extract different information, they can design that to meet your needs. And so that was really a desirable feature. And like Jake said, they're right down the street. They're not in, some remote state from here. It's right here. So,
Yeah.
we would have a lot of on-site training and things like that. So they even gave examples, like they're using it for if the guys out in the field, inspectors have a problem, they just call them and they just basically show up. So there's a whole lot of good tech support in that regard. So I felt very comfortable with it.
So, Mr. Svetnoff, what will we actually be approving tonight then? I see a couple different documents here.
You'll be approving the agreement before you from Butler, Freeman, Seifert.
And the appendix is just the services that go along with the agreement?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the council?
And there is a termination clause in the contract, which we can exit out in 30 days. So.
Okay. So you're okay with this, Joe? You reviewed all this?
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
We have a motion by Mr. Pettit,
Second.
second by Mr. Hardaway for approval of the Butler, Fairman, Seifert agreement as described, including all the appendixes. Great. Any other questions or comments on the motion? As this is, Madam Clerk Treasurer, let's call a roll on this.
Okay. Mr. Span?
Yes.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yes.
Mr. Minchuk?
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Bella?
Yes.
7 in favor.
7-0, motion carries. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Moving on tonight to the letter from the Town Engineering Administrator endorsing Core Construction's recommendation to approve payment for application number 22 to various vendors for work completed at the Merrillville Community Center. I should say the Dean and Barbara White Community Center. Steve?
Yes, sir. President Bella, the town's professional staff, and myself, we've reviewed the July 2021 billing for the work completed at the new Dean and Barbara White Community Center. And we do concur with Core Construction's recommendation in approving payment application number 20 to the vendors listed below in the total amount of $158,618.91.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uzelak for approval of application number 22 in the total amount of $158,618.91. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Mr. Hardaway, we're now going on to the consent agenda. If you'd like to make a motion, it will include the approval of the minutes from August 10th and the town council, the voucher from August 10th and the town council meeting minutes from July 27th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Hardaway has a motion to approve the consent agenda with a second by Mrs. Uselak. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you all. Moving on to standing and special committees. We have Budget and Finance, Mr. Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. President. Couple things. We did finally get the money from the American Rescue Plan. I think it was 3.9 million. Mrs. White gives.
I thought it was 3.6 million, but it might be
That's
3.9.
a little higher than that.
Okay.
Double check that figure.
All right, but anyway, we have got that money, and we're going to meet next Monday at 4 p.m. to finalize what we need, what we want to see in this current resolution for the American Rescue Plan. So I'm asking all department heads, clerk treasurer's office, or the public, anyone that wants to come out to the meeting next Monday at 4 p.m. and get on the wish list for things that you'd like to see this money go toward. So, 4 PM, we will meet next, Monday, right here in the council chamber, right here. So, anybody has any questions, please contact the town manager's office, but otherwise, I look forward to seeing everybody here next Monday. A week from that Monday, Mr. Reardon, we will, the Budget and Finance Committee will meet with the town manager to discuss the impending budget before we sit down again with all of the department heads. So I think that's Mr. Pettit and Mr. Minchuk. So that'll be, whatever that Monday is. So,
Be the 24th,
okay.
23rd.
So,
23rd, pardon me.
right. So that way we can be prepared for, when we have the rest of the meetings for the budget
Okay.
and everybody be on the same page. I think that's all I have, Mr. President, at this time.
Thank you. Moving on to council affairs, Mr. Pettit.
No report.
Public Works and Utilities, Mr. Minchuk.
Nothing at this time.
Elections, Public Relations, Town Beautifications, Mr. Pettit.
Well, I'll wait for Rich's birthday report under Public Relations.
Okay.
Town beautification, I still need to call a committee meeting and get with Leonard and Steve on the bridge lettering as the first jumping off point, so I'll have to find a time with you guys and my committee.
Great.
Is that all, Mr. Pettit?
Yep.
Environmental Affairs, Mrs. Uselak.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. And we have had 9 people that have passed within the last 2 weeks from COVID. So 5 of them were from Lake County. So we're still keeping our eyes open and we're wearing our mask. Valparaiso University also mandated from last August 1st, everyone, staff and students, to wear a mask. And pretty soon, if they haven't followed by now, will be Notre Dame and Indiana University.
Indiana
They
already
will
did it.
be mandating the mask too. So it's still very important that we watch ourselves, keep our distance, and wear your mask. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Personnel Policy and Employee Benefits, Mr. Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we discussed in an executive session, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the settlement agreement between the town and Mrs. Buscemi.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Hardaway, second by Mr. Pettit, to approve the settlement agreement with Elizabeth Buscemi. Any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. President?
Councilman White.
Yes, I think we should basically approve of this, but I do have some issues, and I think when I've talked to Patty says, remember these things are personnel meetings, so I have to be very confident of what I talk about. But I felt that I didn't get all the information there. I'm still thinking that this was actually a situation between Stormwater and the clerk's office, even though we took it over as a council. Because I got a different set of information, and I'd like to talk about it at the next executive meeting. So I won't talk about it right now, but it didn't make me happy to find out what happened. And I do think she deserves those dollars. I just don't think that the way that the approach, I don't agree with it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call, please.
Mr. Span?
Mr. Span?
No vote.
No,
Abstain.
you're abstaining?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yes.
Mr. Minchuk?
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Abstain.
And Mr. Bella?
Yes. We have 5 in favor with 2 abstentions. The motion carries. Anything else, Mr. Hardaway?
That's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Economic Development, Mr. Pettit.
Yes, Mr. President, we have on the agenda, I believe, the ordinance for Twin Acres at a later date, a resolution for Twin Acres. And I'll wait to make comments at that time.
Okay, thank you. Parks and Recreations, Mrs. Uselak.
Oh, yes, as I have reported before, all parks have been rehabbed. The one in Sean Pettit's ward was being worked on. They had the floor done. So I'm assuming that park should be completed by now. And that would complete all of our public parks in Merrillville.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Abandoned and blighted properties, Mr. Hardaway.
I don't have anything, Mr. President, at this time. I think Vicki will have something to say a little bit later.
Okay. Dean and Barbara White Community Center, co-chairs, Mr. Minchuk and Mr. Pettit.
Mr. President, I'm going to turn to Jeff here in a minute. We did have a committee meeting at the center, I guess when's it been, Jeff? Almost 2 weeks now, Thursday. We talked about some agenda items with Steve and Andrew from CORE, the least of which being we are buying 3 smaller monitors outside of each of the event rooms at the Mike Anderson Event Center so that Barb Young can program in what event is in each of those rooms, or if someone's renting the entire event center, that's great. It'll say that as well. We've been working on wrapping the storage container for the Merrillville Pop Warner and Merrillville Youth Soccer that's out there. I believe the concession stand is completed. I know, Jeff, you were going out there to look at the scoreboard and the PA system, and I'll turn it over to you with regard to the Pop Warner discussion that we had. I know we need to get with Joe on some things before they start their season.
I do. Basically, football season and soccer season are both upon us here. We got some things to button up around the field. There's a couple minor legal things I'll get with Joe. It's not a big deal at all. We'll get that taken care of. But we just got some things to button up around the field as the field still kind of has some things that need to be done. So hopefully we get those done within the next couple months so they can make their season a little bit smoother.
Great. Anything else, gentlemen?
No.
Thank you. Moving on to special projects, including the food and beverage tax, diversity, and the town's birthday, Mr. Hardaway.
Let's just jump straight to the town's birthday. August 14th, 12 to 4 p.m., we will be here in the town's parking lot. We have a lot of activities scheduled. We have all of our public safety equipment will be on display. All of the town departments, building and planning, code enforcement, clerk treasurer's office, town administration, courts will all have representatives out willing to answer any questions about the functions of those departments. We will have food aplenty, and so we're looking for a good time. I spoke with the DJ today, and he's going to provide music from the 70s, 80s, and 90s to keep us in hand with our theme. We're looking for volunteers from town employees to come out and assist us in this endeavor. And if you have anyone in your department that's going to volunteer, please let us know so we can have name tags made for them for that day. I think that may be all we have. We're going to meet Friday to finalize everything that our parking lot and the setup of the parking lot. We've had a great committee. Everybody has been very responsive and participated in everything that we asked them to do. So I think now is, we're just waiting on August the 14th to, my understanding is that we have good weather. It'll be like low 80s. So we encourage everyone to come out. And last but not least, we're still looking for any and everybody that was born in 1971 to come out and be a part of a photo opportunity.
Birthday, John.
Unfortunately, so far, I've only have 2 people that have identified themselves as being born in 1971.
We know there's more, right, Rich?
And there's got to be at least 2 or 3 more. Gotta be. So I spoke with one of them this evening, and he's going to go back and pull out his yearbook and see if he could contact some people to come out and meet us down at on the museum steps so that we could take a picture at 12 noon. So if you know anyone that was born in 1971, please ask them to come out and be a part of this grand festivity. We'll take a picture, we'll post a picture down at the Dean and Barbara White Community Center for longevity.
Well, what's the date on this? August when?
Beg your pardon?
August when?
14th.
August 14th, this coming Saturday.
When you drive back to your office, just look up, you'll see the banners.
There are some
Don't
electronic
worry about
billboards that have that on there too, Mr. Mello.
August the 14th.
Yes,
What, no?
yeah, we have 250
12
signs
o'clock.
up, Joe.
We'll be out there, we'll be down at the museum.
Yeah.
So,
Does anybody here not know we're doing an event on August 14th here at Town Hall parking lot? Okay,
that's all I have, Mr. President.
thank you, Mr. Hardaway. Moving on to department and commission reports, Lake County Solid Waste Management District, Mr. White.
No report, Mr. President.
Northern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, Mr. Hardaway.
No report, Mr. President.
Stormwater Management Resources, Director Matt Lake.
Yeah, I just want to quickly report that the Meadowdale Regional Detention Basin is about 95% complete. Essentially, all we have to do is plant about 200 trees out there.
Wow.
Maybe we'll make that part of our Arbor Day event this year because, due to COVID and everything, we really didn't have an Arbor Day event.
Sure.
Next council meeting, there'll be a proclamation prepared for Arbor Day, so we could read that off and maintain our status as a Tree City USA.
Super.
But just to recap, this detention basin is going to hold about 14.7 million gallons of water when it rains. It gets that capacity. So pretty important, but we're going to keep plugging away and doing a lot more as much as we can, especially on the north end that needs detention and that wasn't planned like we plan on things today, So we'll keep on with that. And I want to thank, again, Little Cal. We received a check for over $500,000 from them to reimburse us. So again, special thanks to them. We're also coordinating with Winfield on the 101st and Clay Street project. We're meeting this Thursday at my office at noon to go over the plans and the specs on that particular item. We're also almost done with our greenhouse gas inventory. It's nearing the end of that. Next phase is to get into a plan and how to implement and reduce our emissions. I was at the South Shore Clean Cities event this morning. A lot of great innovation out there, especially from different companies like Ozinga. They got their own energy sector where they're doing amazing things with CNG and their fleet. And again, this plan, hopefully the results is that we transition into more of a green fleet to reduce emissions and reduce our greenhouse gases. Looking forward to the Saturday, the town birthday celebration. So we will be there. We'll have our Marsh Master, our jet vac, our camera truck, and some games and handouts and things like that. So looking forward to participating in that. That's all I have.
Matt? I'm sorry, Mr. President, I have some questions for Matt.
Mr. White.
Yes, Matt, again, thank you for, in the Little River Calumet Basin for doing such a great job. Actually, I spoke before I seen the end product. That's why I was like, hey, you guys are taking up too much space. But it's really, really nice. I've heard a lot of good compliments about it. Just one little issue. Last night, of course, on my way to get some food, I noticed a lady was walking inside of one of the basins and stuff, and she didn't understand. I kind of told her, ma'am, I don't know the stability of that, but I think because they see the grassy area inside of the retention basins, they think it's okay. So I just wanted to say, be careful in there, and I asked her probably not to walk in there again because I don't think that was the purpose. Unless you tell them they can walk in there, Matt, then I'll say, hey, have at it. But
I think since it's just constructed, it's all basically blanket and seed. So people are curious, they walk down there, it's safe. It's just a dry basin. Unless we get a monsoon, it's not going to fill all the way up. So during times when it's not raining, it's perfectly safe to walk in there. There's no issues with that.
awesome. Next time I'll just say, hey, go ahead and continue walking your dog in there.
Yeah. It's not the new dog park.
Right, that's,
You didn't say the dog.
that's what people used to feel like they do now.
Well, she had a dog. She was trying to explain the dog, well, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Additionally, with the greenhouse gas situation, you're going to do an inventory. And the reason I asked about the inventory, because I do notice on at Myers, they have electronic charging stations over there. I didn't know if we may get some dollars to get some electronic charging stations on the north end, coming off of 61st somewhere, and that just letting the community to know that the possibility they can have charging stations there. 'Cause
We did
About
apply
cars?
for a grant.
Yes.
Yeah, we got a grant. We actually have them in.
We have two at the Dana Barber White Community.
Yeah. Yeah, we met with Ryan Lysick from South Shore Clean Cities.
Okay.
And he set that up for us, so we applied, we got the money, it's already installed. But expanding on that, yeah, great idea. So,
Okay.
again, and the charging technology is changing too, so you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest and kind of forecast where it's going, because the technology is changing so fast.
Yeah, I seen the one in the north on the at Myers, and is that like a Tesla?
Those are Teslas, and those are unique because they have a proprietary way that they plug in their cars. So you can't just pull up in a Chevy Volt or something and plug in there. Tesla has their own charging stations just for Tesla. So it's a specific plug that they use. And that's some discussions we had today at the sessions with South Shore Clean Cities was some of the proprietary ways that they do plug in different vehicles and, you know, how to make it more universal and stuff like that. The ones that we have are more of the standard type that anybody can plug into. There's also a software. It's actually an app, and that we could charge whatever we want for people to plug in there. We're going to start off with it, just courtesy. And then when the Parks Director starts, we'll get with him or her and then, you know, go through the software. And if they want to start charging a certain amount or make it a perk for people that have electric cars and are also members of the community center, you know, something like that. And then later on, you can expand on that. If that's working, you can, you know, add, you know, a row of charging stations if you want. But
Now would that be a what we call a greenhouse gas equivalency when they use it?
well, there's ways to equate how much you're saving. Again, energy has to be created, so it's coming from, you know, either nuclear or coal power, you know, so, but the overall footprint is what you want to track and make sure that you're reducing. And so, yes, there is a reduction. The greenhouse gas inventory that we did, we took data from several agencies, including NIPSCO and all that, put it into an international database through ClearPath, and that spits out all the metrics and what you're using as a community. We can get down to our fleet and look at that as well, but this was overall overarching and looking at all the different ways that, you know, and different things that we are doing to emit greenhouse gases. And the plan will be how to reduce that the best way possible through efficiency and new technologies and everything else, not only for the town, but for businesses and residents and everything else, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President, to Matt and Steve, and this kind of goes back to Public Works a little bit, Steve. Matt, now that the pond is done on 57th, that was part of our community crossings program, right, Steve?
Yeah, we already.
Leonard's comment about the woman walking, Randolph came in under budget, didn't it, Steve? A little. Are there plans to renovate or rehab those sidewalks on the north side of 57th Avenue as a part of the paving? That might alleviate the woman walking in the pond if she can
Yeah,
walk
so
on the
we're-
north side of 57th.
Absolutely.
So when we get started on 57th here in a couple of weeks, we met with our contractor last week. They're going to get it on their schedule. Any sidewalks in need of repair along that corridor will be fixed when we do the roadway. So we'll take care of that. That's all part of it, so.
Okay, and I wonder if we might want to put delineator poles on that south side, Matt, so people know, because if we get an icy condition and somebody slides, whether it's wet or dry, they could end up sliding into that. It's close. I drive that way every day to work. I take 57th to Cleveland.
Yeah, there is a walking path on the south side of the pond, between the two, there's a wetland between those. But as far as on 57th, you've got a big buffer zone, plus we're going to have a row of evergreen trees.
Oh,
So
okay,
there's
that's
plenty
where
of
the trees are
delineation. Yeah, like I
Okay.
said, we have over 200 trees to
all
plant,
that.
so a lot of evergreens. It's going to be a row of evergreens along that whole stretch there.
Okay.
And along the south end where the houses are, to kind of buffer it out from the houses, so.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to the South Shore Visitors and Convention Authority, our representative is Mr. Reardon. Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Bella. is evidenced by the handout. The South Shore Visitors Authority, Tourism, is alive and well. We continue to work forward, work positively, and I will have a full report for the council at our next executive session. Thank you.
Thank you. Department reports from department directors. Vicki?
With our other duties, we're now concentrating efforts on trying to get junk vehicles off the street and out of driveways. And that kind of poses a little bit of problem with the driveways because a lot of people don't know where their titles are. So we're trying to get that all straightened out so that when snow comes, somebody will have some place to park their car and there won't be the extra cars on the street.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Anything else from you, Mr. King?
I might as well say something.
You've been up there more tonight.
First of all, I thank Mr. Hardaway for getting the senator involved at that 53rd and Broadway, helping us push that thing along. It's an eyesore, definitely, and we'll be in close contact with NDOT about the turn arrows at 57th. I explained to them in the email the accidents, include at least one fatality that I know of, and that was in the email, so that, perks up their ears even more. Real quick, I was in contact with a gentleman named Clint Marler from the CNN Railroad about the crossing on Broadway. We really hit a jackpot with this contact. It's hard to get a hold of people like this. He was in my office. We discussed smoothing out the tracks, between the tracks this year, probably in the next few weeks. Public Works is going to provide traffic control for them. They're going to bring a grinding machine in, grind the hump out between the tracks to kind of smooth it out for the time being, with the anticipation of a full replacement of that crossing at Broadway next year. I also reached out, Mr. Hardaway's and everybody's concerns about the blocking the tracks on Hendrick Street. When you go north on Hendrick Street from 73rd, it's about 8,500 feet before you get to the track, and you realize that it's closed. It's a big issue for first responders, and I alluded to that. Mr. Marler, the email I sent him explaining that, he forwarded on to their team, and they have seen instances like this, so they're aware of it. We talked about putting some flashing warnings, towards the intersection of 73rd and Hendricks there, so when it's flashing, first responders and the residents will know what's going on. The gates are down, so that's also in the works. So hopefully they're going to move forward with that. That's a different team, but he pushed it along for us, so hopefully we'll get some resolve on that, and I'll keep everybody posted.
Great.
Oh, yes, it took us a while to get those railroad, what did you call them, crossing? Because there were numerous people that were killed on that track over the years. I take that road quite a lot myself. I'm very cautious. So what did they say they're going to do now?
Well, he's going to push, I sent him an email explaining that, talked face to face with him, explained our situation. Then I put it all in writing, put it in an email to him. He doesn't particularly handle that, but he knows the people that do. So he's pushing that along to get some resolve with that. And the problem, like I explained to him, it's 8,500 feet from the intersection to that point.
Right.
Especially in the middle of the night, police, fire, ambulance, you get all the way down there, and it's as dark as can be down there. And now you have to turn around a fire truck, and we can't have that. I said in the email that, it could be potentially life and death situation.
Definitely.
So that kind of perked their ears up a little bit too, so they're going to push it along for us. So we'll see what happens here real quick.
Good, thank you.
Okay,
Chief Catino.
that's all.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, just another thing I'd like to cover. Next week, school will be starting back next Wednesday. And I don't know if you have been noticing, our traffic enforcement team been out there for a few weeks, and they've been working north and south, east and west. And to the citizens and to the elected officials, if you feel that you know of a particular location that's a problem area, feel free to give us a call. You will make contact with the patrol commander, Commander Jeff Bennell, because that's how they get their assignments, their daily assignments when they come in and address a particular roadway. So if you have a particular roadway that you're experiencing some serious problems, feel free to give us a call, and we can direct that to these traffic enforcement officers. And like I stated, school will be starting next week, and they will be focusing on these school areas. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief.
Can I say one more thing, Mr. Bella?
Sure, Steve.
Speaking of the school starting, we did get a call from the principal of the high school about the condition of 68th Avenue. We are going to pave that from Broadway up to the high school. So we'll be doing some work in there starting tomorrow. We'll get the pavement in. We'll have to double back after the fact and do some concrete work, but the road will be nice and smooth for opening day of school for the buses to get in and out of there, so we'll be ready.
Sheila, any additional report from you besides BZA tonight?
No, just one for Mr. Pettit. I talked to the gentleman over at the Minnehaha. I gave him a subcontractors list, and he's going to try to get moving on that parking lot in a couple weeks. He's back in town.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Moving on tonight to general orders, we have a first reading ordinance 21-21. It's an ordinance of the Town of Merrillville, providing that the zoning ordinance, Town of Merrillville, Lake County, Indiana, be amended by changing the established A1 agricultural zoning district to a CIS, a commercial industrial special district classification.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak for approval. Any discussion on the ordinance?
Mr. Svetnov, can we suspend and read this on second reading? For the benefit of the council, this is a piece of property, the last piece of property really out at a Merrillplex that was not included in the original CIS zoning that they did way back in the day in 2005, 2006. And I know that the developer, the Meisner Group, was in front of the Planning Commission, and they're anxious to get this rezoned, close on the property, and they have a development that's tying into this. So is that this is we can do on second reading, Joe? That's all, Mr. President.
Well, we need to get through first reading first. Is there any discussion on the first reading of this ordinance? Hearing none. Madam Clerk Treasurer.
Mr. Span?
Yes.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yeah.
Mr. Minchuk?
Yes.
Ms. Uzelak?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Bella?
Yes.
7 in favor.
7 in favor. Motion carries. Mr. Pettit.
Motion to suspend the rules, Mr. President.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Hardaway, to suspend the rules in order to read ordinance 21-21 on second and final reading tonight. Any discussion on the motion to suspend? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to read this on second reading?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Minchuk, with a second by Mr. Pettit, for approval of ordinance 21-21 on second and final reading. Any further discussion from the council? Hearing none, this is a second reading ordinance tonight, so we open it up to public comment. Is there any public comment on ordinance 21-21, a zoning ordinance change? Seeing none, Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call, please.
Mr. Span?
Aye.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yes.
Mr. Minchuk?
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
And Mr. Bella.
Yes. Motion carries. On second reading tonight, we have ordinance 21-20. It's an ordinance of the Town Council authorizing the insurance issuance of Town of Merrillville, Indiana Economic Development Revenue Bonds and approving the authorizing other actions in respect thereto.
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak, for approval of 21-20 on second reading. This should be familiar. This is Mr. Anderson. Would you please approach?
Mr. President, as the Economic Development Chairman, the RDC approved this as well. This is the $10 million bond issue that the developer is buying for Twin Acres, the Twin Acres project at 93rd and Taft. I won't steal your thunder, Rich, since you walked all the way up there.
Thank you. I hustled up here. Richard Anderson, 9211 Broadway, Merrillville, Indiana. The Economic Development Commission has met and approved this project. Now, the Redevelopment Commission has had its allocation of the area, and so this is the final step, which is the bonds, where it's authorizing the issuance of the bonds. And I think the most important section of it from the town standpoint is in section 4, where it indicates it's a special and limited obligation of the town payable solely from the trust estate created and established under the indenture. So this is not a public obligation of the town of Merrillville. I think that kind of sums it up. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
One important component, Mr. President, that the members weren't at the EDC is that the town also gets the first $100,000 or 15% of the increment collected, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
That's taken off the top when the tax revenues come to the town.
And we'll find out from Mr. Swentz or Mr. Pittman what fund that money can be allocated into and used for.
I thought that would go to the ward councilman.
I think it goes to the
Well,
redevelopment commission
it
first.
needs to go to,
For projects, not me personally. For projects.
Wow. Okay, Rick.
wow, that's a cruise. man.
See, Joe, I left it at let Mr. Pittman and Mr. Swentz decide, and
Okay.
Little conjecture never hurt.
Any other questions or comments on the second reading of this ordinance? We've been through it a few times. I think it's procedural now. Is there any public comment on this ordinance? Ordinance 21-20? Let the record show there's no public comment. Madam Clerk Treasurer, call the roll, please.
Absolutely. Mr. Span?
Yes.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yeah.
Mr. Lynchuk?
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Bella?
Yes.
Mr. President, I do have one quick
Thank you
question
very
for
much.
Mr. Anderson.
7-0, motion carries. Mr. Pettit.
You're at
Rick.
preliminary PUD in front of the Plan Commission, Rich. What are Don's plans as far as the actual grocery store coming down now that the financing is done?
Basically, the next step would be the preliminary PUD. Next, we're already filing by the 20th for the final PUD. Once we're through the final PUD, then there's.
You're going to wait until then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's also a BZA meeting that fits in there, and there's also we have to vacate the plat for the lots that are, so that we don't have lot lines inside the area.
Okay.
Sheila and I were talking about that today.
I talked to Mr. Weiss, and he's going to make every effort to start the raising of the buildings yet this year, if at all possible.
Correct. And I think
That's where
on the
we are.
timeline we're on, I think we can do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Kelly, we need 2 signatures. Moving on tonight to resolutions, we have Resolution 21-48. It's the resolution approving a form of economic development agreement among the town council, and the Liberty Estates LLC.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to table this resolution at the request of the petitioner.
Second.
We have a motion to table by Mr. Pettit. Chair will recognize Mr. White as the second. Discussion?
I'm sorry, that will be an indefinite table, Mr. President, according to our town manager.
That'll be tabled indefinitely. Does your second stand, Mr. White?
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries, Mr. Pettit. Moving on to Resolution 21-59. It's a simple transfer of monies within the town budget. Net effect is $5,000 on the first transfer. The increase is $5,000 on the line items. The second one is $15,000 with the increase $15,000. The net effect is zero.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Uselak, second by Mr. White to approve this transfer of funds within town departments. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. It was pretty simple, Trista. Thank you, though. Thank Thank you. Moving on to the second item under BZA actions, Ms. Shine.
Yes, that's going to be universal signs. Could you approach while I read this? Yes. Universal signs, okay. A variance of use approval Z25 UV5 0721, Universal Signs Incorporated, petitioner, owner, GFS Merger 3, purpose, proposed electronic message center located at 1601 West Lincoln Highway in a C3 Highway Commercial Zoning District. Petitioner is requesting a variance of use approval from Section 21-189-8 to allow an electronic message center to be located at 1601 West Lincoln Highway in the C3 Highway Commercial Zoning District. Gordon Food Service has an existing 150 square foot sign and would like to add a 45.2 square foot message center to the pylon sign. The total proposed signage would be 195.2 square feet. Petitioner would like to use this electronic message center to inform the public on the products that they sell. Gordon Food Service supplies their products to the food industry and the general public. The sign will allow GFS clients to better know what products and services are provided. Petitioner will advertise town events when requested.
I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak. I have one question, Sheila,
Yes.
or maybe for the petitioner. I know we always require that these signs automatically dim at night because that way they're not too bright, but I still see signs that look very bright to me, and it's almost a huge distraction. Will this sign have the dimmable, automatic dimmable?
So we can put that condition on there, and that they have, he can speak more on the capabilities of what the sign can
Okay,
do.
sure.
But we can make sure we put that
Yeah.
condition on there.
Jack Voss, 15286 Hoffman Drive, Grand Haven, Michigan. This unit will have an automatic dimmer in it, and it comes standard in the unit. What you're seeing is signs that don't have dimmers in them,
Okay,
and so I can assure you that this will not be a sign that is glaring or blaring like that, because it will dim based upon the ambient light.
okay.
Who's the manufacturer, sir?
The manufacturer of this one is Electromatic.
So Sheila, we don't have that automatically in our ordinances or in our
That
code?
they have a automatic dimmer on?
Right, right.
No, what we normally do is we ask the question, just as we did, or
Okay.
we put a condition on it that they have to turn them off or turn them down at a certain time of
Okay.
night. Especially when they're going toward, when they're in a residential zoning district or near a residential zoning district,
Okay.
so that they won't light into the district.
So Mr. Pettit, would you add to your motion then that this includes automatic dimmer as
Yes.
discussed tonight?
I will add that.
Mrs. Uselak, your second stand?
Yes, it does.
Very good. Any other quick discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, pleasure, roll call.
Mr. Span?
Yes.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yes.
Mr. Minchuk?
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
And Mr. Bella?
Yes,
All in favor?
motion carries.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shine?
Special exception approval Z 28E1007, Natisha Edwards. Could you come to the petitioner, owner, Lake County Trust Company, TRS 3804, to allow a healthcare training center located at 5425 Broadway in the C2 Community Commercial Zoning District. Petitioner is requesting special exception approval from Section 21-136 to allow a healthcare training center to be located at 5425 Broadway in the C2 Community Commercial Zoning District on 0.79 acres. Petitioner is a certified American Heart Association CPR instructor, a certified nurses aid director and instructor, and a pending certified qualified medication aid instructor, and a bachelor's of science registered nurse. Petitioner has over 20 years in experience in nursing. The certified nursing assistant is the individual that assists the patients with various activities in hospitals, nursing homes, and other facilities under direction of a charge nurse. They often help people under their care with the day-to-day activities such as bathing, toileting, dressing, and eating. This training is designed to be completed in 105 hours in 2 to 3 weeks. The qualified medication aid is equipped to administer medicine in the absence of a nurse. This training is 75 hours. The American Heart Association CPR course is a same-day certification training. These trainings are designed to help the workforce and to ensure that individuals are professionally trained and certified. Once petitioner receives approval from the town, the Indiana State Department of Health will come to certify the program. The hours of operation will vary from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. depending on the class schedule. Some training is done at the facility. The number of students will be a maximum of 10. The site is 10,350 square feet. The required parking per section 21-172Y is 52 parking spaces. There are 62 parking spaces in the front of the building and 20 in the rear parking lot. The training facility will be known as Mirror, not Window Healthcare Training and Consulting Academy LLC, for this petitioner only, at this location only, and for this use only.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Hardaway with a second by Mr. Span for approval of this petitioner for the use of a healthcare training center at 5424 Broadway. 20 years of service. Thank you for that.
You're
Wow.
welcome.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call.
Sure, Mr. Span,
Yes.
Mr. Hardaway,
Yeah.
Mr. Minchuk,
Yes.
Ms. Uzelak,
Yes.
Mr. Pettit,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
and Mr. Bella.
Yes. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good luck.
Great idea there. All right. Is there any old business before us tonight, council? Is there any new business tonight before us?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. White?
Okay, I know things been going good tonight, but can we put a break on that?
I'm sorry? Everything's going great.
No, I just had a complaint about contracts. And the reason I'm saying that is because this is the second time that I've heard about contracts. I had no clue until like 8 months after that they were a contract, like an auditing contract. And most recently, in one of our other meetings, I didn't know that we were having an audit, and those are contracts. And I think we all should be aware when we have contracts, because I don't know the scope of those contracts and didn't even know who was actually doing it. So I'm looking forward to it in the future to be included and let us see these contracts and let us sign off all on these contracts, because I have not had that opportunity. I don't even know what these people are supposed to do, why we're paying them, and how much we're paying them. So
This kind of has a feel of probably a workshop topic. Do you want me to add this to the next workshop?
Absolutely.
Talk about it, or,
Absolutely.
Counselor, do you want to address it? Contracts, no contracts are done unless we all, vote on and approve it.
Well, I like to add that to the next workshop, so I don't have
Okay.
to make any further public
You have
statements
to
on
do
it.
that, Councilman?
Yes.
I have to acknowledge Councilman Mark Koppel from the city of Hobart. Hi, Mark. How are you, sir? What brings you out tonight? Okay. I don't see you taking any notes you could take back to Hobart. Oh, we videotape it, so you can just watch the tape. please send your mayor our regards, okay? Thank you. Moving on tonight to public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? Please approach the microphone podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rahel, and I live at 6588 Ellsworth Place in Merrillville, Indiana. I am here because over the summer, the street 65th up until Ellsworth, and then if you make a right from 65th to 63rd, was all paved, but we had damage to our street if you make a left on the same street, except for going 65th to the left, excuse me, and then you go to the dead end. We didn't have any paving, and we actually had damage to our street while they were trying to fix whatever they were fixing. So I guess I'm here to ask why the dead end was neglected, because
Well, you're in luck tonight because Steve King's in a very talkative mood, and he's going to address that for you right now. Mr. King.
So you're at 6588?
Ellsworth, yes. And I actually have other neighbors here that own homes in the street too.
So how we go about how we're gonna pave our roads is we use a rating system. We rate it 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. We had the roads rated, last time they were rated last year. It did not rate low enough to get paved. Could have been like a 3 or something right on the border. Not saying it's not gonna get done, it's something, if it was damaged during the other work, it's something I can personally take a look at.
Yeah,
I
I have pictures too if you'd like to see it.
With council's permission, we can make adjustments to that if it's in dire need of repair, and, we can take care of that, so.
Okay.
I will come out, I got your address.
Okay.
And, I'll actually be out tomorrow to take a look at it.
Perfect.
And, we can do a reevaluation.
Perfect.
And see what type of damage was done, and we'll go from there.
Okay, awesome.
So, yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Please approach. You're next, Mark. You don't get to come and sit through a whole meeting and not say anything.
Good evening, everyone. I also live on the same cul-de-sac. It's a dead end that Ms. Rahel just mentioned. And it leads right into what used to be like, I guess it's, I was told it was going to be converted to a walking path at some time, but that hasn't happened. It's very dark there. We have had some crime in the area on that same street, 6588 and 6600 is my address. And in that same dead end, people are coming in there at nighttime, and someone actually entered into my backyard. I'm in the process of having it fenced just because of that. But all of the yards are open, and it's very dark down there, so it is leading to a possibility of crime. And we also have potholes between our two. We are neighbors. We have other neighbors here tonight as well.
So Steve, right there, when the road curves, it turns into West 65th Place, and there's only 1 or 2 houses on that particular little curve, and then it does dead end. So.
Yeah, that's where it goes back to the guys. Is that MCD property ban they gave? I'm not sure. I know we were talking about them.
Okay.
But yeah, I can contact NISCO and get them involved, and we can take a look at it. Sure.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
You bet. Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment?
No problem.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I went to the dentist, ironically, and so excuse me. But anyway, my name is Africa Gibbs. I live at 607 East 78th Place. I'm here because I've been having some serious issues, and I feel like it has not been addressed. Hi, Chief, how are you?
Good evening.
Sure you remember me?
Yes.
And Mr. Hardaway, I spoke with you as well. Thank you for letting me know that this evening was taking place, excuse me. My story is real quick. I bought the property right across from you guys, right across from the police department, rather, October 2019. And from that point, on December 20 of 19th, it's been a series of just unfortunate terror for me and my family, literally. It has escalated to the point of now I'm getting death threats. My complaint this evening is that I have come to the police department, I have a slew of reports where I have come here pleading almost in tears, crying for help, and I'm not getting any of it. I'm either being mocked, I'm either looked down upon and taken as a joke with the police department, and no one is taking my matter seriously. This dates back to, again, I bought the property in October 2019. I was with my daughters. I'm a single mom. I was at Home Depot where my innocent little baby just happened to see a man there and said, "Mom, that man was here yesterday." So I said, "What are the odds this man is here at the same time, in the same place?" I looked over. He looked at us very violently, angry, evil. I don't know. I've never seen this man. I've cried over and over. This is not a domestic. This is not anybody that I know. That was my first scene of this man. We left out. He sat in the parking lot. I gave the description of the vehicle later on. But just to make it real quick of the story, I'll leave out. I just had a feeling he was trying to follow me home. I went the opposite direction, and at this point, I was just new to the area, so I didn't really know too much. So I just went opposite and drove around for 15 minutes, came back home. I worked for the railroad too, 16 years employed. I worked nights. I came off my driveway. Let me back it up. 3 days after that, I seen the car drive up, through the community, through the neighborhood. I called the police for a wellness check because my daughters was home by themselves. 3 days later, I come off my driveway. He's there again by the fire hydrant with a hoodie on, posted up. At this point, I busted a U-turn, made a U-turn, and called my daughter, and I said, "Hey, what did we say about that car?" "Mom, it was a white car with a dent," which I've gave that description over and over and over. Followed the person around 3 times. I didn't know that there was something called Indian Trail that I was unknown to me at that time. So when I made my way around again, because he kind of stopped on me, I was met by the police. So they did a wellness check, called my sister to get the girls out the house. After that, he tried to break into the house, called the police out. There's boot prints all around my house where the window well was removed. The police officer come out, he'd look and say, "Okay, if you see something else, I saw you're gonna," I don't know other formalities of what, other than watching TV, I guess. And I'm like, "Are you gonna take fingerprints, boot prints?" So around my home, before I had to get it fenced in, which I paid $10,000 for my privacy fence because of this situation. And also in response to that, I spent thousands of dollars on cameras so that when you walk up on my property, I know it's a nuisance to the other neighbors. However, as soon as you walk up, it buzzes. Make a siren sound. I put bars on all my windows, and this man has not stopped. Now, when I mean not stopped in terms of with everything implemented around my home to deter him, this person has not stopped at all. And at the time that I thought that you guys would be able to ID this man, I was told I had to go to Hobart because the Home Depot was located over there, and I was unaware of that. So I went to Hobart Police, which they gave me a police report. Brought it back here, I did, and I said, "Hey, here's the police report so you guys can pull the tape so you can see this man, because I don't know him. You can see him maybe following us or whatever, we can get an ID on him." No one never reacted to any of that. None of it. After that, a series of images of a man on my window, a slew of boot prints. I was taking pictures. I was bringing it here, pleading and crying. My mom, unfortunately, has recently passed, but she was here with me, and we were trying to get a hold of, what's going on here. With that being said, with the boot prints, the images, he's a very crafty person. I don't know if he's a serial killer, if he's done this before, but he's always eluding my cameras, and somehow y'all never, we haven't ID'd him yet. But I'm always told with the police department that I have to get an ID. I got to get the plate number. I have to do this. So I'm going out of my mind trying to figure out why this person is doing it, who is doing it, and the only thing I can associate was the situation with the man that I seen at Home Depot, because it's been downhill ever since. So I came here for, think I'm going to raise my kids, and I've always heard good things about Merrillville, and I'm thinking I'm here for the American dream, and it's been nothing but terror. I'm literally, to put in so many words, just living in a living nightmare. It stopped for a moment, and now it surged back again. So upon that being said, the egg throwing, he's been vandalizing my property, even with the fence up. So I found out because I went out to the community, knocking on everybody's doors, explaining the same thing I'm telling you about this man from Home Depot. That's the only thing I can associate it with, because these are the events that followed after seeing this man. No one has come out to the community to ask questions or interview. Upon my own investigation, I found out that 2 houses from me, one of the homeowners found a man sitting in his yard with a bird, with a cage. Somebody was like hunting for rabbits. And I said, why didn't you call the police? He said, I don't know, I should have. Paul, which is my neighbor where the crime is taking place in his yard, because it's so dark, and he doesn't have cameras apparently, and this weird guy knows that, and that's where he keeps alluding to. So I go back with Paul, and we're constantly talking back and forth, and I said, Paul, someone's throwing eggs, at my window. It's always aimed at my bathroom window. I got pictures of that as well. And we went back in his yard, and there was a carton of eggs, that was used, and, obviously used to throw, so he claims he's never seen anything. I don't know anybody's personal finances. I really love to buy him some cameras so we can, get a, handle on what's going on, who's creeping back there. No one has ever came back to interview Paul. No one, not one time. With that being said, it stopped for a moment. I had to call relatives. I had to call my son to come, move in, that maybe a male presence would stop some of this, and it has not. I don't know what I'm dealing with here. I've cried and pleaded for help and assistance from the police, and I have not gotten that. I'm sorry to say that, but it's just the truth. With that being said, we have now escalated to he's tearing out Bible scriptures and putting it in my mailbox with death threats. So I came here, my daughter, my youngest girl daughter went to the mailbox, and she's hysterical, she's crying, mama, somebody so when I read it, it's like red ink and black ink. I guess red means bloodshed and the black ink means death. But he took Bible scriptures to indicate some coding of some sort. Came up here to file a report, the young lady officer, I said, do you want this? I explained my situation to her. Well, she did listen, and she goes, no. I'm like, you don't need this for evidence? No, I have it in a Ziploc bag at home because I got a file stacked up to here with these boot prints and everything I submitted that they claim that I have not done. So with that being said, Corporal, or he was a supervisor, Officer Buss, he's the only one that took the time out, honestly, to come to my home. The third time, 3 days in a row, my home was vandalized with eggs. So he said, okay, Africus, I remember you from last year. Now we're in, August 2021, and this dates back to December 2019. That's just unacceptable. He comes to the house, he witnessed the eggs. He's like, yeah, I see that, and we start talking. I said, is there a detective signed to my case? Is there anybody else in on this? Is anybody else aware of the torture I'm living? And so he said, no, Africus. We walked to the front, he went to get my report number, I went to the mailbox, and there's another one. And this time he took it. I got pictures of that. And this one is also Bible scripture with the word female with a hangman. And then because my mom, as I stated, recently passed, I have custody of my nephew who has mental issues, the word sons is circled living creatures and animals. So I had a dog, he's killed my dog is dead. So, and that was right after the threat. So I call you guys out again. And I'm told the same thing as if I'm crazy and disillusional and telling me, well, if you see anything, hear anything, call us. I'm like, are y'all serious? So how much more of this I'm supposed to take? And I don't know what the disconnection is, but I've cried on this, I've pleaded, I've come to you guys in the most humble state, and I've done everything reasonable as far as buying protection for me and my children. Gates everywhere. I feel like I'm living in a war zone here. I have no peace at all. I'm up late night looking out the window trying to see who's creeping around, who's coming to my mailbox. I called the sheriff department because I want to make a complaint, against the police department because I talked to the chief commander and I wrote his name down. Excuse me, I don't remember right now. Upon speaking with him last week, he kind of laughed. Like, well, how do you know they're trying to kill you? Well, how do you? I'm like, sir, are you serious? I'm like, this is a life and death situation. And I know you probably don't care about my life, but I do. And I care about my children's life, which I'm fighting for. Because I have no idea why this man seemed to target on me and my daughters, other than the fact I'm a female with daughters.
Okay.
With that being, and I'm going to wrap it up, sir, and thank you for listening. Thank you, all you guys, for your time. But I have I'm just at my wit's end at this point, and I'm crying out for help.
Could you stick around a little bit after the meeting? And
yes.
We'll ask Chief Curtino to meet with you privately. And
Okay.
that way, we can see what we could do to help.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me? I live across right.
She lives in Chapel Manor, Don.
Chapel Manor.
You're across the street
And I'm
from,
being tortured to death right across from the police
are
department.
your neighbors, ma'am, are your neighbors across the street Cruz Sanchez?
I'm
You're
not.
the split at Virginia Place and 78th
And he
Place.
sits right there.
correct.
He sits.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Used to be Cindy Devaney's old house.
Yes, I've talked to him about it too. We've talked, and he said he haven't seen anything as well. So, yeah, I've been through the whole neighborhood knocking on everybody's doors, just like, hey, you seen anything weird? You know, someone's walking through the neighborhood that don't live here. You know, please notify the police.
Chief-
I've done everything I'm supposed to do.
Will that be okay? Can you stick around a little bit after the meeting and discuss this with her?
Yes, just to get a good understanding on my behalf and the officers that represent Merrillville Police Department, every time that you have come in, and I even had dialogue with you myself.
You did.
And it's been a while since we sat down and talked. And I got your message last week. You left your number with another secretary, not mine, the one that's assigned to me, and I returned your call and left a message, but you never called me back.
I didn't get the message then.
That's okay, that's okay. But every time that you do call or you come in, we take your complaint, like we do others, serious. And we listen to you, and we go out and we look things over. So not at this time or any other time, don't ever think that the Merrillville Police Department, include myself, do not take your suggestions or your comments or your concerns not serious.
Respectfully, it's not even those things, it's the evidence that I've submitted to you guys. I submitted
I'll
evidence.
talk to you shortly.
I know, and respectfully, you guys, one thing I can say about the Merrillville Police Department, the response when I call, you guys do come. That's the best thing I can say at this point. No disrespect toward you, because I remember us before you made chief, and congratulations on that.
Welcome.
And I know we've talked before about this situation, but it has since escalated to death threats, and now my dog is dead, so are me and my children next? Because that's what I'm getting from these death threats that's been left in my mailbox.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I was just here moments ago, and my issue is nothing in comparison to hers, but I must commend the Merrillville Police. I did call them. A gentleman entered my deck by way of my garbage can, and he had boot prints on my garbage, and that's what made me come back to the mic. I don't know if it's related, but it's in that same dark cul-de-sac that I live in, that is pitch black. He entered October 31st. I do have of 2020, I have the police report, where he entered on top of my deck and attempted to open the doors. I just happened to be awake. He was coming in. So we do need a light in that area. It's really dark down there. So, and I will give you a call. You say that's your district, so I'll give you a call and maybe.
In your area, that is a shortcut sometimes for a lot of people go through that particular area, but your area is totally different.
From hers, yes, but I just thought I'd indicate that because when I was at the mic before, I was being pulled in more than one direction, and I did not get a chance to, state my full case. But it's in need of a light at that end of the cul-de-sac, for sure. Okay? 6600 Ellsworth Place. Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Any other public comment this evening? Seeing none, our announcements?
I have a comment. I want to pay homage to the, can I talk?
Absolutely.
Oh, I thought somebody came up there. I just wanted to pay homage to the AFL-CIO union president who died last week.
Yes.
There were 14 million union members underneath him. He fought for prevailing wage, which I did march in Washington, D.C., and I had the opportunity to meet with him and sit with him. He passed away last week.
Yes.
That's all.
Mr.
Thank you.
Is his name Mr. Tumpka, something like that?
Pardon?
Mr. Tumpka?
Oh, Richard Trumka. I'm sorry, I didn't even say his
okay.
name.
We know who you meant.
Richard Trumka, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Uselak. Announcements, the RDC meeting on August 24th will be at 6 o'clock p.m. The next council meeting is August 24th at 6:30. The Merrillville birthday celebration, we heard a lot about that tonight, is this coming Saturday at 14th at noon. And we have a plan commission meeting on August 17th at 6:30 scheduled.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, Chief.